Empire Tales. Saladin, the noble warrior. Imagine a world of endless desert sun, where two great civilizations clashed in a holy war that lasted for centuries. On one side, the armored knights of Europe fighting for the cross. On the other, the fierce Saracen warriors fighting for the crescent. In the middle of this bloody chaos stood one man who would become a legend to both sides. He was a conqueror who hated bloodshed, a king who lived like a pauper, and a warrior whose mercy was more powerful than his sword. This is the story of Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, known to the West as Saladin, the man who reclaimed Jerusalem and taught the world the true meaning of chivalry. Part 1. The Scholar from Tikrit. Saladin was born in 1137 in Tikrit, modern-day Iraq. He was not born into a royal family. He was a Kurd, the son of a soldier. In his youth, Saladin was not a man who dreamt of conquest. He was a quiet, studious boy who loved poetry, philosophy, and religious studies. He was more interested in the Quran than the sword. But destiny had other plans. His uncle, Shirkuh, was a high-ranking military commander under the ruler Nur ad-Din. Young Saladin was forced to join his uncle on a military expedition to Egypt. It was in the lush Nile Delta that the scholar became a soldier. Through a series of brilliant political maneuvers and unexpected deaths, Saladin found himself at the age of 31 as the vizier of Egypt. He didn't just take power. He united a fractured Islamic world, bringing Egypt and Syria under one banner for the first time in generations. Part 2. The Dream of Jerusalem. For nearly 100 years, the holy city of Jerusalem had been under the control of the Crusader states. To the Muslim world, this was a deep wound. Saladin's ultimate goal was not just to build an empire, but to reclaim the holy city for his faith. However, he was not a mindless fanatic. He spent years building his strength, forming a professional army of cavalry and archers that was as disciplined as it was loyal. The turning point came at the Battle of Hattin in 1187. The Crusader army, led by King Guy of Lusignan and the notorious Reynald of Chatillon, marched into a desert trap. Saladin, understanding the terrain perfectly, cut off their access to water. In the blistering heat of the Galilee, the armored knights were exhausted and thirsty. Saladin's forces surrounded them, setting fire to the dry grass to choke the Crusaders with smoke. The defeat was total. The king of Jerusalem was captured, and the elite fighting force of the Crusader states was annihilated. Part 3. Mercy at the Gates. With the Crusader army destroyed, Saladin marched on Jerusalem. The world held its breath, remembering the horror of the First Crusade 88 years earlier, when the Christian knights had waded through knee-deep blood, massacring every Muslim and Jew in the city. Everyone expected Saladin to take his revenge in the same way. But Saladin was a man of his word. When the city surrendered, he forbade any looting or killing. He allowed the Christian inhabitants to buy their freedom at a very low price. And for those who were too poor to pay, he and his brother often paid the ransom out of their own pockets. He even allowed Christian pilgrims to continue visiting the Holy Sepulchre. This act of mercy shocked Europe. In an age of extreme brutality, Saladin proved that a conqueror could be a protector. He didn't just win a city, he won the moral high ground of history. Part 4. The Lionheart and the Sultan. The fall of Jerusalem triggered the Third Crusade, led by the most famous warrior of Europe, King Richard the Lionheart of England. For years, these two giants of history engaged in a deadly dance across the Holy Land. Richard was a brilliant tactician and a ferocious fighter, but in Saladin, he met his equal. Their relationship is one of the most fascinating in history. Although they were bitter enemies, they shared a profound mutual respect. When Richard fell ill with a fever, Saladin sent him baskets of fresh fruit and snow from the mountains to cool his drinks. When Richard's horse was killed in battle, Saladin sent him 2 fine Arabian stallions, saying that a king as brave as Richard should not have to fight on foot. They fought dozens of battles, but neither could completely destroy the other. Eventually, both men were exhausted by war. In 1192, they signed the Treaty of Jaffa, a peace agreement that allowed the Crusaders to keep a small strip of the coast but left Jerusalem in Muslim hands, with a guarantee of safety for Christian pilgrims. Part 5. The Death of a Humble King. Saladin died only a year later, in 1193, in the city of Damascus. He was 55 or 56 years old. When his treasurers opened his private safe, they were shocked. The man who had ruled Egypt, Syria, and the Holy Land had left behind only 1 piece of gold and 47 pieces of silver. He had given away all his immense wealth to the poor, the sick, and the construction of schools and hospitals. He was buried in a simple wooden coffin in Damascus, leaving behind an empire that was held together not by fear, but by the love and respect his people had for him. Legacy: the bridge between worlds. Saladin remains one of the few figures in history who is a hero in both the East and the West. In the Islamic world, he is the great unifier and the liberator of Jerusalem. In the Western world, he is the perfect knight, a symbol of chivalry and honor that even the Crusaders held up as an example to their own kings. He proved that power does not have to be cruel, and that faith does not have to be intolerant. He was a warrior who sought peace, a king who chose poverty, and a leader who believed that justice was the highest form of worship. Saladin's story is a reminder that even in the darkest times of war, the light of human nobility can still shine. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the life of the noble warrior. If you believe that honor and mercy are the true marks of a leader, please subscribe to Empire Tales, like this podcast video, and join our community. The past is never truly dead. It is just waiting to be told.